The mortgage rejection letter revealed my brother's betrayal in black and white. "I'm sorry, Miss Hill, but with your current credit score, we can't approve your application," the officer said. I stared at the rejection letter, my hands trembling. Josh and I had been planning this house purchase for 2 years. We'd saved every penny, worked extra hours, dreamed about our future together in that little colonial on Maple Street. Now it was crumbling because of a credit score that shouldn't exist. "There must be some mistake," I whispered. "I've never missed a payment in my life." The officer's expression softened slightly. "You might want to check your full credit report. There's a significant outstanding balance on a card issued 3 years ago. $37,000. My world tilted. $37,000. I made $3,400 a month teaching 5th grade. There was no way I could have run up that kind of debt without knowing it. That night, I sat in my apartment with the credit report spread across my kitchen table like evidence of a crime I didn't commit. Josh paced behind me, his engineering mind trying to solve this impossible equation. "Someone stole your identity," he said for the 10th time. "We need to call the police." But as I stared at the application details, my blood ran cold. The address was correct. The social security number was mine. Even the mother's maiden name was accurate. This wasn't random identity theft. This was personal. The signature on file looked remarkably like mine, but something was off. The K in Christina had a flourish I never used. My heart sank as recognition dawned. I'd seen that flourish before, on birthday cards and Christmas presents. Derek. My older brother had always been jealous of my neat handwriting. My phone buzzed. A text from Derek. "Hey sis, can you loan me $500? Just until next week, I swear." I screenshot the message and added it to my growing pile of evidence. This wasn't the first time he'd asked for money, but it would be the last time I'd even consider it. The next morning, I called the credit card company. After an hour on hold, I finally reached a human being who confirmed my worst fears. The card had been opened with a forged application, but the purchases were real. Expensive recording equipment, studio time, a used car, and cash advances that added up to financial ruin. "I need to file a fraud report," I said. "You'll need to file a police report first," the representative explained. "If this was done by a family member, you'll need to decide if you want to press charges." Press charges? Against my own brother. The thought made me sick, but the alternative was losing everything Josh and I had worked for. I drove to Derek's apartment complex, a rundown place on the wrong side of town where he'd been living since his latest band broke up. His car, my debt, sat in the parking lot like a monument to his betrayal. Derek answered the door in yesterday's clothes, looking like he'd been drinking. "Christina. What's up, sis? We need to talk." He let me in, and I noticed new equipment everywhere. A mixing board that cost more than I made in 2 months. Guitars I'd seen him admiring online. A leather couch that still had the price tag. "Nice setup," I said, my voice deadly calm. "Yeah, finally got some investors interested in the band. Things are looking up." "Investors." I pulled out the credit report. "Is that what you're calling identity theft now?" Derek's face went white, then red. "Christina, I can explain. $37,000, Derek. In my name. With my credit. I was going to pay it back. The band is about to sign a record deal, and you've been saying that for 10 years. I stood up, towering over him despite being shorter. "You destroyed my credit. You destroyed my future with Josh. You destroyed everything." Derek's expression shifted from guilt to anger. "Oh, come on. It's not like you were using that credit for anything important. You just sit in that tiny apartment, saving every penny like some kind of miser. At least I'm trying to make something of myself." The word miser hit me like a slap. After everything I'd sacrificed, every time I'd helped him, he saw me as greedy for wanting my own life. "Get out," he continued. "I don't need your drama right now. The guys are coming over to practice." I gathered my papers and walked to the door. "You're right, Derek. You don't need my drama. But you're going to get it anyway." The police station smelled like disinfectant and desperation. Detective Morrison, a tired-looking woman in her 40s, took my statement with professional sympathy. Family fraud cases are always messy, she warned. Are you sure you want to pursue this? He stole my identity and ruined my credit. If he were a stranger, would you ask me that question? She nodded approvingly. Fair point. We'll need the original documents, bank statements, anything that proves the fraud. Over the next week, I became a detective in my own life. I gathered evidence, made phone calls, and slowly pieced together the scope of Derek's betrayal. He'd been planning this for months, carefully studying my signature, memorizing my personal information. The worst part was discovering that Dad knew. When I confronted him, he barely denied it. Derek came to me in tears, Dad said over the phone. He said he'd made a mistake but was going to fix it. I thought it was better to keep it in the family. Better for who? Not for me. Christina, he's your brother. Family sticks together. Where was that family loyalty when I was working 2 jobs to pay for college? Where was it when I helped you with Mom's medical bills? Family loyalty seems to only flow one direction in this house. Dad's silence spoke volumes. The confrontation I'd been dreading came 3 days later. Derek showed up at my school during lunch, drunk and angry. The security guard, Mr. Peterson, intercepted him in the parking lot, but not before he'd made a scene. You called the cops on your own brother, he screamed across the playground where my students were having recess. What kind of sister are you? Parents picking up their children stared. My principal, Mrs. Chin, emerged from the building with a concerned expression. Sir, you need to leave school property immediately, Mr. Peterson said firmly. She's destroying her own family over money. Derek continued. She's always been selfish, but this is too much. I walked over calmly, my teaching voice steady despite my racing heart. Derek, you need to go home and sober up. We can discuss this later. Discuss what? How you're sending me to prison because I borrowed some money. Borrowed? The word came out louder than I intended. You stole my identity. You forged my signature. You ruined my credit score and my future. That's not borrowing, that's fraud. The gathered parents were listening now, some recording on their phones. Derek seemed to realize he was making things worse, but his pride wouldn't let him back down. Fine, he spat. Send me to jail. But don't expect this family to forgive you. Mr. Peterson escorted him off the property while I stood there, shaking with adrenaline and shame. Mrs. Chin put a gentle hand on my shoulder. Take the rest of the day off, she said quietly. Handle whatever this is. That evening, the calls started. First Mom, then Dad, then various relatives I barely spoke to. The message was consistent. I was tearing the family apart over money. I was being vindictive. I should drop the charges and work it out privately. He's going to lose his apartment, Mom sobbed into the phone. He can't afford a lawyer. Is this really what you want? What I wanted was to buy a house with my fiancé, I replied. What I wanted was the credit score I earned through years of responsible financial behavior. What I wanted was a brother who didn't steal from me. But he's family, Christina. He made a mistake. A mistake is forgetting to call on my birthday. This was a calculated decision to destroy my financial future for his benefit. The pressure intensified over the weekend. Grandma Mary, who I adored, called to express her disappointment. Uncle Paul showed up at my apartment with a 6-pack and a lecture about family forgiveness. Even my cousin Lisa, who I'd helped through her divorce, sent a text about the importance of family loyalty. But the worst was Josh's doubt. He supported me publicly, but I could see the questions in his eyes. Was I being too harsh? Was there another way? I just want to make sure we're doing this for the right reasons, he said carefully as we sat in our favorite restaurant, the one where he'd proposed 6 months earlier. What other reasons would there be? I don't know. Maybe revenge? The word hung between us like an accusation. You think I'm doing this for revenge? I think you're hurt and angry, and you have every right to be. I just want to make sure we're not making decisions from that place. I set down my fork and looked at the man I was supposed to marry. Josh, he stole $37,000 from us. From our future. If someone broke into our house and stole $37,000 in cash, would you be asking me about revenge? That's different. How is it different? He couldn't answer, and I realized that his doubt was just another weight I'd have to carry alone. The preliminary hearing was scheduled for the following Tuesday. Derek showed up with a public defender who looked like she'd rather be anywhere else. He wore his only suit, the one he'd borrowed from Dad for job interviews that never led to jobs. The evidence was overwhelming. Forged signatures, fraudulent applications, purchases made with the stolen credit line. Derek's lawyer tried to argue that it was a family dispute that should be handled civilly, but the prosecutor shut that down quickly. Your Honor, fraud is fraud regardless of family relationships. The defendant systematically stole the victim's identity and destroyed her creditworthiness. The family relationship actually makes this worse, not better, because it represents a fundamental betrayal of trust. Derek was released on his own recognizance, but the charges were filed. As we left the courthouse, he grabbed my arm in the hallway. "Are you happy now?" he hissed. "You're going to send me to prison." I looked at him, really looked at him, for the first time in years. Past the anger and desperation, I saw what he'd become. A 30-year-old man who'd never taken responsibility for anything, who'd spent his entire adult life expecting others to solve his problems. "I'm not sending you anywhere, Derek. You did this to yourself. I'm your brother. You were my brother. Brothers don't steal from each other." That night, I sat in my apartment with a bottle of wine and a calculator, trying to figure out if there was any way to salvage the house purchase. Even if Derek was convicted and ordered to pay restitution, it would take years to repair my credit score. The house on Maple Street would be someone else's home by then. Josh found me there at midnight, surrounded by financial documents and empty tissues. "Hey," he said softly, sitting beside me on the couch. "I'm sorry," I whispered. "I'm sorry I dragged you into this mess. I'm sorry our dreams are ruined because of my screwed-up family." "Our dreams aren't ruined. They're just postponed. You don't have to pretend this doesn't change everything." He was quiet for a long moment. "You're right. It does change everything. It shows me exactly who you are when everything falls apart. You didn't crumble. You didn't make excuses. You stood up for yourself and for us, even when everyone else told you not to." I looked up at him through my tears. "Even when you told me not to?" "Especially then. I was wrong, Christina. I let my fear of conflict make me question your strength. I won't make that mistake again." The trial was set for 6 weeks later. In the meantime, Derek's life fell apart in predictable ways. He lost his apartment when he couldn't make rent. His band broke up when the other members realized his investors were fictional. He moved back in with our parents, who were struggling to support him on Dad's retirement income. The pressure on me to drop the charges reached fever pitch. Family gatherings became impossible. Social media posts from relatives painted me as the villain in a story where Derek was just a misguided kid who'd made a mistake. But I'd learned something important. The people who truly loved me supported my decision, even when it was difficult. Josh, my best friend Sarah, my mentor teacher Mrs. Rodriguez, they all understood that what Derek had done was unforgivable. 3 days before the trial, Derek showed up at my apartment one last time. He looked terrible, thin, unshaven, wearing clothes that hadn't been washed in days. "I'll plead guilty," he said without preamble. "I'll take whatever sentence they give me. But I need you to know something first." I waited. "I didn't do this because I don't love you. I did it because I was desperate and stupid and I thought you'd never find out. I thought I could pay it back before you knew, and then we'd all be fine." "But you didn't pay it back?" "No, I couldn't. The band thing fell through, like always, and the debt kept growing, and I was too ashamed to tell you the truth. So you let me find out when I tried to buy a house with my fiancé." "Yeah." He looked down at his hands. "I know you'll never forgive me. I know I ruined everything between us. But I want you to know that losing you as a sister hurts worse than anything else that's coming." I felt tears starting again. "Derek. No, don't. You don't owe me forgiveness. You don't owe me anything. I just wanted you to know that I know what I did was wrong, and I'm sorry." He left without another word, and I never saw him outside a courtroom again. The plea hearing was anticlimactic. Derek pled guilty to identity theft and fraud. The judge sentenced him to 18 months in prison with the possibility of early release for good behavior. He was also ordered to pay full restitution, though we all knew that was largely symbolic. As the bailiff led him away, Derek looked back at me one last time. I thought I might feel victorious or vindicated, but instead I just felt tired. The brother I'd grown up with was gone, replaced by this stranger who'd stolen from me and then blamed me for the consequences. Outside the courthouse, reporters from the local news station were waiting. Financial fraud involving family members was apparently newsworthy enough for the evening broadcast. "Miss Hill, how does it feel to see your brother sentenced?" a young reporter asked, shoving a microphone in my face. "It feels like justice," I said simply. "What he did was a crime, and crimes have consequences. Some people are saying you should have handled this privately, within the family. Those people didn't have their identities stolen and their futures derailed. Family relationships don't exempt someone from the law." That night, the story ran on the 6 o'clock news. My phone exploded with messages from family members, most of them angry that I'd humiliated the family on television. Dad's text was particularly brutal. "I hope you're proud of yourself." I turned off my phone and didn't turn it back on for 3 days. The credit repair process took 8 months. 8 months of phone calls, paperwork, disputes, and slowly watching my score climb back toward respectability. Josh and I put our house hunting on hold and used the time to save even more money and strengthen our relationship. During Derek's incarceration, I received exactly 1 letter from him. It was short and didn't ask for anything, which surprised me. He wrote about the classes he was taking, the job training program he'd joined, and his plans for when he got out. He didn't apologize again or ask me to visit. He just wanted me to know he was trying to become someone better. I didn't write back, but I kept the letter. 18 months later, Josh and I finally bought our house. Not the colonial on Maple Street. Someone else was living there now, but a craftsman bungalow with a garden and a front porch where we could drink coffee on Sunday mornings. The day we moved in, I got a call from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Christina? It's Derek." My heart stopped. "How did you get this number?" "Mom gave it to me." "Look, I'm not calling to ask for anything or to try to make things right between us. I know that's not going to happen. I just wanted you to know that I got out last week, and I'm staying clean. I have a job at an auto shop, and I'm going to pay back every penny I owe you. Derek, I'm not the same person who stole from you. Prison was educational. I learned some things about myself that I didn't want to know. But I also learned that I could change if I really wanted to." I looked out the window of my new house, where Josh was assembling a bookshelf in our living room. "I'm glad you're doing better." "Are you? Really?" The question surprised me with its honesty. Was I glad? Part of me had wanted him to suffer, to understand the consequences of his actions. But another part of me, the part that remembered the little boy who used to read me bedtime stories, genuinely hoped he could find a better path. "Yes," I said finally. "I am. Thank you. That means more than you know." He hung up without asking for forgiveness or reconciliation, which told me more about his transformation than any apology could have. 3 years later, I received a money order in the mail for $500. No note, just my name and address in Derek's handwriting. It was the first of many payments that arrived sporadically over the following months. Never large amounts, $50 here, $200 there, but consistent enough that I could see he was serious about making restitution. I put each payment into a separate savings account and never touched the money. I wasn't sure what I was saving it for, but it felt important to keep it separate from our regular finances. Josh and I were married in our backyard on a crisp October morning. My family was notably absent from the guest list, a decision that hurt but felt necessary. Sarah stood as my maid of honor, and Josh's college roommate was his best man. It was a small ceremony, but it was ours. During the reception, I noticed a car parked across the street with someone sitting inside. I couldn't make out the face, but something about the posture was familiar. The car drove away before I could investigate, but I had a feeling I knew who it was. That night, I found an envelope that had been slipped under our front door. Inside was a card with a simple message. "Congratulations. You deserve all the happiness in the world. I showed it to Josh, who read it twice before speaking. Are you okay? I think so. It's strange. I spent so long being angry at him, and now I mostly just feel sad. Sad for what we lost, sad for who he became, sad for the family we might have been. Do you miss him? I considered the question carefully. I miss the brother I thought I had, but I don't think that person ever really existed. The real Derek was someone who could steal from his sister and then blame her for being upset about it. And now? Now he might be becoming someone different. But that doesn't erase what he did, and it doesn't mean we have to have a relationship. Josh nodded. You don't owe him forgiveness just because he's getting his life together. No, I don't. But I also don't have to carry anger around like a weight anymore. He destroyed one version of my life, but look what I built instead. I gestured around our little house, filled with friends and laughter and love. It wasn't the life I'd planned 5 years ago, but it was better in ways I couldn't have imagined. 6 months after our wedding, I made a decision about the restitution account. It had grown to nearly $8,000, still far from the full amount Derek owed, but substantial enough to mean something. I donated the entire amount to a financial literacy program for at-risk youth. The irony wasn't lost on me. Derek's theft had ultimately funded education that might prevent other young people from making similar mistakes. I sent him a letter telling him what I'd done, along with a copy of the donation receipt. I wrote that I hoped the money would do more good this way than sitting in an account neither of us would touch. His response came 2 weeks later. Thank you for turning something ugly into something beautiful. That's who you've always been, and I'm sorry it took me so long to see it. It was the closest thing to closure I'd ever get, and it was enough. Now, 5 years after that first rejection letter from the mortgage company, I sometimes think about the strange path that led me here. Derek's betrayal had felt like the end of everything, but it was actually the beginning of a life I built entirely on my own terms. I kept my teaching job, despite opportunities to move into administration. I liked being in the classroom, working with kids who reminded me daily that people could change and grow. Josh started his own engineering consulting firm, and we'd become the kind of couple who actually enjoyed each other's company. We never had kids, but not because of the financial setback Derek had caused. We discovered we were perfectly content with our life as it was: quiet Sunday mornings, impromptu weekend trips, the kind of financial stability that came from making careful choices and trusting each other completely. Sometimes I wondered what would have happened if I'd handled things differently. If I'd paid off Derek's debt quietly, covered for him one more time, chosen family loyalty over personal justice. But those thoughts never lasted long. I'd learned that protecting someone from consequences wasn't love, it was enabling, and it helped no one in the long run. The final payment from Derek arrived on a Tuesday in March, exactly 4 years after his sentencing. It was for $312, an oddly specific amount that brought his total payments to exactly $37,000, plus interest calculated at the credit card rate. With it was a note: "This completes my debt to you financially. I know I can never repay the other things I took: your trust, your peace of mind, your relationship with our family. I hope someday you can think of me without anger. I think of you with gratitude every day for teaching me that actions have consequences, even when they come from people who claim to love you. Especially then." I read the note 3 times, then put it in the shoebox where I kept all his letters. There were 7 of them now, spanning 4 years of what seemed like genuine growth and self-reflection. I'd never responded to any of them, but I'd kept them all. That evening, Josh found me in our garden, pulling weeds from the flower bed we'd planted the previous spring. "Penny for your thoughts?" I sat back on my heels and looked at the house we'd built together, not just the physical structure, but the life inside it. I was thinking about forgiveness. Oh! Not the kind where you pretend something didn't happen or go back to the way things were before. The kind where you stop carrying someone else's choices around like they're your burden. And I think I'm finally ready to put Derek's choices back where they belong, with him. He stole from me, and he paid the price. I stood up for myself, and I built something beautiful from the wreckage. We're even now. Josh helped me to my feet and brushed the dirt from my knees. So what happens now? I looked at our house, our garden, our life together. Now we keep living. We keep choosing each other and building something that belongs to us alone. And if Derek wants to be part of the world again, he'll have to earn his place in it, just like everyone else. No special treatment for family? No special treatment for anyone. That's what I learned from all this, that love without boundaries isn't love at all. It's just enabling dressed up in good intentions. We went inside and made dinner together, talking about ordinary things like work and weekend plans and the book Josh was reading. It was a perfectly mundane evening, and I was grateful for every unremarkable moment of it. Later that night, as I was getting ready for bed, I made one final decision about Derek. I took all his letters from the shoebox and read them one more time, then put them in an envelope addressed to him at his last known address. The note I enclosed was brief. Derek, I've decided to return your letters. They were always meant for you, not me. I hope you keep becoming the person you describe in them. I won't be part of that journey, but I wish you well on it. Take care of yourself. Christina. I mailed the envelope the next morning and felt something shift inside me, like a door closing gently but firmly. I was finally free, not just from Derek's debt, but from the weight of his choices and the obligation to manage his consequences. The rest of my story was mine to write, and it was going to be beautiful. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Sometimes the hardest choices are the ones that teach us who we really are.